What's the name? What's the name of our committee? Hafide, good afternoon. The Committee on Health, or the GMH Special Investigative Committee, now convenes this meeting. The time now is 4:12 p.m. The date is September 7, Friday, 2018. I want to recognize the Vice Chair, Senator Torres, for being here, Senator San Augustine, Senator Castro, and Senator San Nicolas. Thank you very much for being here and for us obtaining quorum for this meeting. This meeting is to provide the committee an update on where we're at with this effort. It was back in, I believe, in June. Chuck, you can please join us. I want to recognize Chuck Tanner, my Chief of Staff, as well, that the committee had authorized the chairman to seek a private investigator to help us with this process. And in that process, my office has gone through 3 different private investigators that for at least for 2 of them, we've went as far as signing a contract already and having that document circulate through the process. And midstream, we were advised that they had to pull out, whether it be a potential conflict of interest, the budget being too little, as they have considered the scope again, or the third one was the time frame, because the resolution does call for a 120-day timeline from the date of passage of the resolution. I just want to also say for the record that no funds have been expended as of this time. So we've never expended any funds for this process. The $25,000 that was authorized was never used. And so that's where we're at now. The committee, my office, has compiled a file of documents and information that have been presented from people from the community, whether they be employees or private citizens. This is what we have. I made the decision as chairman not to release any of this information so as to not jeopardize any of our investigation moving forward. The whole idea was that we have this. We have a private investigative firm corroborate these information that's provided to us, and then present this body, this committee, with their findings. And then from there, this committee will then make its decision on how to proceed and move forward. And so, being that we are nearing the 120-day timeline, and that being that this term is ending in about 3 months, there's several options that we have, and I want to present that to the committee. One option, and these options are coming from me. Other options, will be welcome from anyone else. Is that we turn over these information that we have to the OPA, to the Attorney General's office, and have them pursue it on their front. The other would be to preserve what we have and to provide it to the successive Committee on Health or the 35th Guam Legislature. The third option would be, of course, again, as I said earlier, is to go to the body and extend the timeline, and of course increase the budget to pursue this until the end of the term, which is sometime in the beginning of January. So those are the options that I want to put out forward to this committee, and from there seek any further guidance from any of you here. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned possibly the OPA and the Attorney General's office, because they do play a role dealing in financial issues, the OPA side, and on the possible criminal aspect would be the Attorney General's office. So.
And also, Senator, just to also state for the record that is my understanding that some of this information, some of these people that have provided the committee some information have also provided the same information to federal authorities. And so, of course, we're not privy to anything that's happening on that front, but that's what I can share with you and put on the record, that those information has also have been shared with those authorities.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to actually try to, I wouldn't want this to just linger for the remaining 4 or 5 months, and if it can be investigated by the Attorney General's office for any possible criminal implication activity, or the OPA, which is going to have an OPA, I guess, come Tuesday or Wednesday. They'll have one there in place. At least those two entities who have the investigative authority, they can at least start this moving, and then, because as this lingers, the 35th legislature will have to deal with it. And they can pick it back up if they choose, whoever becomes the chairman of the health committee. And I like to, maybe that might be an option to consider by this committee, is to refer it to them, and then maybe a copy be left for the 35th legislature to consider if they want to reopen it, or ask the Attorney General's office or the OPA office where are they at this point.
And thank you for that. And just to go back to what our purpose was, right? When I introduced this back in earlier this year, and it wasn't until June, I believe, that the body had passed it. The purpose for this body, at least, was not look for any criminal intent or criminal wrongdoing. However, if we did come up upon it, then we would, of course, provide that to the proper authorities. But it was really to look at what policy, if any, that the legislature would take to kind of address the issues that we've brought up in the resolution. So you're absolutely right. We don't know if any of this has already been forwarded to the Attorney General or the OPA, but this is something that is an option for us to provide that to them as well. Any Senator, Senator Torres?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My thoughts on this is that, given the fact that we're coming up to the deadline, which was 120 days, which puts us around October the 18th, I believe, that given the time constraints, given the fiscal constraints that we have, and really my whole concern with the process was, what is the end game? Because if the end game is to determine if there was anything that was inappropriate and required some sort of disciplinary action, that was not the purpose of this investigative body, that is not our role in that regard. So not knowing what is in the binder that's been collected, I think just in principle, my thought would be to just refer whatever you've been able to gather confidentially to authorities that would then have some interest in pursuing any possible wrongdoing by employees or the agency heads, and let it be there. Because I think that our role is very clear in terms of an investigative body, what our parameters are. And the parameters that I believe people were concerned that were worth looking into are really outside of our scope. So my thought is, let's not extend it. Let's forward whatever is in there. And I can't speak to it because I haven't seen it. But then again, the judgment of what action to take is really best with the law enforcement type entities or the judicial type entities to address. So I would recommend that we go with your suggestion, that it just be forwarded to perhaps the OPA and perhaps the AG, and let it lie with them. And we can just close this chapter. It's unfortunate that that we had all good intentions to have an investigation done by an independent investigator, and it's not uncommon in this small community that you run into issues where there are conflicts of interest, and people either have to pull out of a project or recuse themselves from making a decision or having a role. That's not uncommon on Guam, and I can see how there's so many people involved in an agency as large as GMH, and there could be potential conflicts with people acting independently and unbiased. So my recommendation is that we heed the good advice of the chairman, which is just to put it with the authorities that really have a play in taking it to the next level if it's appropriate. But then again, that's not knowing what actually is in there. I think that the timelines, given the timelines, the restraints of the timelines, and the restraints of the fiscal climate that we're in, that perhaps it's best to be prudent at this juncture.
Thank you, Senator Torres. So is that a motion? Will that be a motion?
I would I would make that a formal motion, yes.
Okay, thank you, Senator Torres.
Second.
Thank you. And any discussion on that motion, Senators? If not, is there any objection to that motion? Any objection? If there's no objection, I just want to state on record, I don't know if I did it earlier, that the final investigator that we had communicated with, it wasn't until August 27th or 28th that we were told that she was pulling out. And so that's why we scheduled this committee meeting. So, okay, there was no objection. That motion is passed. So what I would do is that we would prepare a transmission of this to the OPA and to the Attorney General's office. And from there, we'll leave it there. And we'll also preserve a copy so that the 35th Guam Legislature is a body that would have interest in it and would pursue it if they so wish to pursue. Okay? Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. If there's no other discussion, then no other items on the agenda, we'll adjourn this committee meeting. And from the adjourning of this meeting, that would end any other activity of the Special Investigative Committee. Okay? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.